Good afternoon. This is Hap May with Legal Play.
Hi, Hap, and I'm Chelsea El-Azzi. We are having a special Valentine's Day episode where, when Valentine's Day rolls around, you want to think of, your special loved one who's near and dear to your heart. But no, Hap, I'm not talking about your wife. We do love Vicky.
We do love it.
As much as you may love your spouse or your significant other, the loved ones we're talking about today are our pets. And specifically taking care of them and doing what they might need after you pass. So today's topic is we're talking about pet trusts. Today we have a special guest, Ciera Guardia from Guardia Equine. She is, well, Ciera, what do you do?
Well, I am a veterinarian. I own my own sports medicine practice, so I work on only horses. And I see everything from horses that are loved pets that live in their owner's backyard to competition horses that compete all over the country and some that get imported and exported to and from Europe. So I kind of work on everything, but only horses. And so I've had a lot of situations where those horses do become more of a family member than your own family members sometimes because people love their horses. They love them as much as their dogs, and sometimes more than their own children. So they're definitely a good topic for Valentine's Day.
Well, and pet trust specifically, because we've been wanting to do this topic for a while. And Hap and I, when we were talking about it, when I mentioned pet trust to some of my friends and family, what a lot of people think about is, that lucky little Chihuahua dog whose mom died and left the doggy millions of dollars and it's running around with like rhinestone, diamond collars. But when Hap mentioned that he had a friend who's a veterinarian and who would be good as a guest speaker, he said, okay, well, she's a horse veterinarian. And I thought, huh, of course, horses are large, expensive. They take a lot of space and care. So as Hap said, dogs, while yes, you want your lovely, dog to be treated well and eat delicious food and live a comfortable life. It's easy to just say, dear grandniece, would you like my cute little poodle? And promise to treat it well.
Sometimes, and there are concerns with other animals. The program is going to have the horse as an example, but some of the same principles apply to other pets.
Right.
And I have a particular has a question that she is trying to make plans for.
And I mean, this today's topic is about pet trust in general, but as an example, specifically, we'll be kind of focusing on horses and some real life examples of what may happen if you have a trust for your animal and if you don't. So to kind of lead into our subject today, we've got Ciera here. So I do want to ask, how long have you been working with horses and doing what you do?
Well, I've owned and ridden horses since I was 11. So I've been around them, dyed-in-the-wool horse girl. So they have always been a big part of my family, a part of what makes me happy, more than just a hobby, just family members. And then I went to vet school and graduated in 2013. And so I've been a veterinarian for coming up on 11 years. And I've owned my own practice since 2016. I started it from scratch, just me and my truck going around. And now I have a very successful sports medicine focused equine only practice. Now going through vet school, though, I had to work on birds and guinea pigs and dogs and cats and all the things in between. And so I do have a lot of experience from that perspective as well. And so from a horse standpoint, they're similar, just to Hap's point earlier, there are similar needs for all animals, but then there's very specific needs. Life expectancy, for example, some birds live can live up to 100 years.
Yes.
So it's very, now horses don't live that long, thankfully, but they do live much longer than the average dog. So there's definitely varying needs. But horses have always been my passion. And that sounds very cheesy to say, but I love it.
I know there's a lot of people I know that have horses. So before we were on recording, you were telling me a little bit, you have some experience with clients who have set up trusts for their horses and some who haven't and what happened thereby. So can you tell us about a client who did think ahead and set up the trust for her horse? What did she do and how did that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a lady that had been a horsewoman her entire life. She was probably in her late 80s when she did pass away, but she had had a few different bouts of cancer. And so she had already kind of anticipated making plans. She was very smart about anticipating the needs of her specific horse, who actually had quite a few concurrent illnesses. So he was managed very well, but she knew that when she was no longer there, he would not only need financial support, but also need to be put in the care of the right person who understood the horse, understood his specific needs, and then would also make decisions based on what she would also want. So she also knew this individual, of course, beforehand, and made sure that that relationship was already established, that that trainer was actually what was in charge of the decisions, and then her daughter was in charge of the trust. And Hap can explain all those definitions because that's not my department, but the two of them took on this horse's care afterwards, and the horse actually did quite well, but and he's still alive, and she's been gone for well over 3 or 4 years now. I'm not actually sure, but the horse is doing very well in the situation that he is in. So she chose well, she planned appropriately, and she made sure that that trust was well funded.
Were you involved when she was creating the trust at
Not
all?
to create the trust, no. I was involved with his later care before she had passed away. And she let me know that he had a trust set up. And I thought, well, that's wonderful. But in my situation, I didn't feel like it was something I really wanted to ask more questions about, because we knew that this lady was very near to death, but she was, I wouldn't say in denial about it, but she was very positive of, I'm going to use every day that I have to think about good, happy things and not bad. And so I didn't really go into questions in it. But
have you cared for the horse since she's passed?
yes, I have.
And
he's doing
assuming that any money she may have left for the care of the horse, that's how you're getting paid.
Yes. So the way that that has worked is I invoice her daughter, who is it the trustee? What is her?
Probably is the trustee.
So because she is in charge of his payment. So she gave me a specific credit card that is linked to that. And so whenever there's an invoice, I send her the invoice, she approves it, and then I run that credit card. And the trainer, who was designated as part of the caretaker, one of the caretakers, is always present at the time of the appointment. And if she can't be present at the time, I'm in communication with her live during the appointment, either texting, calling, FaceTiming, something like that. So there's always, I do that with pretty much every patient. So it's nothing out of the ordinary for what I would do in any other situation, just to make sure there's clear communication and everybody's aware of what's going on. But in that scenario, that's basically how I get paid for my services.
Okay. And then you were saying that you know of another client who passed and a trust was not left for her horse or his.
Yeah, and most of them are horse girls. So there are men that own horses, but in the English world, which is what I work on the majority of the time, those are usually ladies. But there are some men. Men usually are more into the Western world, rodeo, that kind of a thing, which is not my population of horses.
Okay.
But in general, yes, this was another lady. And it's not just her. There's been numerous other clients that I've had. I would say that's the majority of the situation, is people don't think about this going forward, or they put some money aside, but it's nowhere near enough to cover the needs of the horse.
Okay.
And that in that scenario, the one I can remember very vividly was a client who did not put up any kind of aftercare trust, definitely not a trust, but not even a written document that said, this is what I'd like to happen to this horse. And she had more than one horse. And so when she passed away, the children of like her children were having to sell her property where the horses lived. So they didn't know, they weren't sure where the horses were going to go. They actually didn't care too much about what happened to the horses. And so in that scenario, a couple of them had some chronic diseases. We knew that the care of these horses was going to suffer. And in Texas, especially, there are kill pens, is what we call them. So it's where they go to auction. And if they don't get sold at auction, they get shipped to Mexico and they go into a food chain. So, and that's a whole other topic, but we knew that that's probably where these horses were going to end up. And it's actually called the unwanted horse population. So the unwanted horse is a very common term since about 2003, when we no longer had slaughter in the US or in Texas, and now everything has to ship. So in general, that's the fate that they face. And so given the age of the horses and
any conditions they may have
that these horses had, in that particular case that I can think of, those horses were put to sleep.
Okay.
So, and if you have to think about what's the worst case scenario versus that, that's actually a kinder way. Most people believe that's a kinder outcome than living in a pasture where nobody's taking care of them and they waste away.
Right, right. And you were talking about, you know, thinking about your horse and its current situation, what its uses are, and what future you would want to have happen for it. And you can always set that up within the terms of your trust.
Yeah.
You were talking about some kind of retirement pasture.
Mhm.
How does that work?
Yeah, so it depends. If you, let's say the horse is 10 years old when its owner passes away, it's still got, just like the birds, they have a long runway ahead of them before they would naturally die in a lot of scenarios, unless something cataclysmic happened. And so in that case, you often, if they're living here in Houston, they're living in a boarding facility that's usually quite expensive, anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a month.
There's not a lot of land
No, there's
here
no
in
land.
Houston for horses.
Exactly. So it's a very urban area. So if they're going to be somewhere in and around the Houston area, they're usually in a boarding facility, which means they live in a stall part of the day. They're turned out in a pasture part of the day. Someone has to bring them in and out. There's people that feed and all, fairly intensive care. When the owner has passed away, if that horse is retired, let's say, and is no one's riding it anymore, that's an option as well, as to send the horse to a retirement facility. But that's something that the owner or the owner's family needs to research beforehand in order to determine where to send them, because again, a lot of them don't exist here in near Houston, or even there's ones in Texas, but they're very far away. So out of state is usually the best option.
Yeah.
And there's also donations. So some people will donate their horse or try to donate their horses to therapeutic riding facilities. So
Okay.
that's one that I didn't mention beforehand, but there's a lot of facilities here in the Houston area or surrounding Houston. One particular that I work with is called Sire, and they have you know, disabled folks that come. Some of them are children, some of them are adults, and they will take lessons periodically, and it's part of therapy for those horses or for the humans.
Right.
The horses love it too, but there's different levels of what those facilities need, whether it be a horse that's still able to be ridden and, you know, actually do lots of things with really capable riders, versus horses that need to be safe, incredibly safe to stand on the ground while someone in a wheelchair brushes their legs or something like that. So
Now,
there's lots of options.
I mean, this being pet trust, if the horse, if you're just wanting to set up a trust for funds to care for the horse, that's one thing. You know, Ciera's mentioning donating a horse. I'm assuming that would be like saying, okay, the horse is my property, and after I pass, I'm going to donate it to the facility.
That is the horse, or any kind of by, but is something that is property and can be donated.
That would be
Donate-
something.
donate. So, and I suppose there's a whole class we've kind of talked about old horses need to retire. I mean, there are horses that are actually so productive. Show horses,
Yes.
race horses, there's some other horses that actually generate some money, which there needs to be a management team.
Yeah.
to determine, you know, where
Absolutely.
they're going to show, where they're going to race, and all of that is business. You
Right.
know,
So if I'm assuming if you want to donate the horse, you'd have to at least believe that it's going to be in a condition to be able to do so when you pass.
Well, in that scenario, you know, it depends on what the scenario is with the owner and their life expectancy. But if a trust is built and you want to donate it to a specific therapeutic riding facility or whatnot, you need to discuss and have that communication with them beforehand, because some of those facilities, they're very limited in their space. They can't take every horse. Just like retirement facilities can't take every horse. And they also have specific needs of what they need. So some of them really need a horse that is sound enough, so healthy and physically capable enough to carry a rider at walk, trot, canter. And some of them only need some horse that's going to be, just be petted, incredibly safe, so it can have a wheelchair all around it and they don't have to worry. So it's definitely, but you need to discuss beforehand, because they don't take every horse.
Okay.
and there is provisions made, because I actually heard about racehorse.
Oh, I didn't know.
To a breeding facility.
Oh, okay.
And I donated the horse and some money.
Yes,
care of
yes, yes. They would like that, yes. Now, that, obviously, that wasn't a trust, but, or was it?
That was not a trust.
Technically, it was just a monetary and horse donation together.
But in this case, if be it a trust or just provisions in a will, we're basically saying, yes, you know, if you have human family that you want to take care of, obviously consider them.
You want to.
But if you have large animals or animals with special needs, or
We're just
Just
wondering, just an animal. you
some
wanna make
exotic
sure-
animals.
Make sure it's properly taken care of by the right in the process. So
Exactly.
Let me kind of jump in and talk about wills and trusts and what the difference is in that process. You cannot leave money to an animal. You cannot give money to an animal. You have to, give it to somebody who is going to take care of it, which is where we come in with the concept of a trust. A trust is where you put money or property in the hands of the fiduciary. Usually that's called a trustee. And that trustee is then responsible for carrying out the terms of the trust, which in our case would be care, maintenance, management of the horse or other pet that you have in the process.
and you can get as specific as you like. I want to take it to this, doctor if possible, and
Yeah,
where's
get
this?
specific or as general as you want to. So, and it depends upon the animal.
Right.
Specific reason to get specific, and I generally like to see, who they like to have a pet be, and who they want the trustee to be, and what animal organizations they would like to be involved in.
Right.
I don't like it too specific.
Right.
Not having to wear a red rifle
Yeah.
or a yellow saddle or
Right.
that's going beyond the scope of the retrieval process. But no, let's have it. There are two kinds of trusts. One is a veterinary trust, which really doesn't exist until the person dies, and terms are included in the will, and it is formed when they, and that happens for most cases. In most cases, however, it doesn't take effect when they die. There could be a point in which somebody who is now, when they were signing papers, trust agreements, will perfectly, capable of making decisions, but becomes incapacitated for a long period of time before they die. In which case, if that person is the one who is taking care of or responsible for determining what happens to the animal in the process, that function may drop out, and there is no will or trust yet to fund and give instructions to what happens to the horse, the dog, the cat, the bird, whatever it was. So it's not a bad idea to have what we call an intervival trust created during the grantor's lifetime. In which case, there are some funds set aside to kind of bridge that gap as to between the time that the grantor becomes incapacitated and the time they actually die.
And in that case, it would be a smoother transition too, because the grantor, the one setting up the trust, probably the owner of the animal could be the trustee, and then just once they pass or are becoming incapacitated,
there's a process by which you pick another trustee,
a successor trustee.
A concerned, family member. It could be an organization, and as I said before, it's going to be an organization or have an organization decide to appoint somebody. They usually have to give some money to the organization to get them involved in the process. But that could be that could be another thing to consider is in a testamentary trust or a trust that doesn't take effect until the grantor dies, you can have a life insurance policy where the proceeds from life insurance, like go fund a trust that in whole or in part is designed to take care of the animal.
Okay.
The other thing you consider with regard to this is we try to figure out how it's going to be needed, and we try to get more than that in the process, which means there's likely to be money left over. And some of the cautionary tales about what to do with that excess money is, usually if you leave money in trust and put your nephew, because he doesn't have another job, and you feel sorry for him, in charge of the animal, and if there's money left over after the animal dies, the nephew gets the rest of the funds, is a dangerous area because the life expectancy of that animal may diminish greatly based on the financial needs of it. Some other things we've seen where way too much money is put into trust, and of course can actually come down and make that reasonable. I think the Helms has that. I mean, some ridiculous amount, $10 million, for care of a dog.
Oh,
And I think
wow.
the court came back billion or something, 25, whatever.
So there may be legal limitations.
Yeah, there'd be maybe legal limitations. Yeah, I can't basically have to give my entire, $1 billion estate, for the care and maintenance of my dog, and I give my children nothing. That's probably not gonna fly. Some court may adjust that somewhat.
well, I haven't been involved in the actual setting up of a trust with a client yet. That's not something I've navigated. So how would that determining the value that would go into the trust? I assume that the veterinarian would have to weigh in.
I think that's something you can certainly be helpful with your experience, particularly with horses. Canaries, maybe not.
Yeah, I know, my department.
But of course, you can kind of figure out what know something about the horse, whether the horse has special needs, how old the horse is,
Sure.
what his life expectancy is.
Medications it's still on,
Right,
special shoeing, there's a lot of it.
Well, and depending on where you want it worded, because as you were saying, if you wanted it, like maybe the caretakers that you're hoping are gonna look after it are in a Houston or an urban area, and so you want the horse boarded nearby, which is potentially more expensive,
Usually,
here
yes.
than shipping it, out of state to some big ranch where it can,
Right.
be free with other horses.
Absolutely.
The point is trying to figure out how much, and then who, what,
Yeah.
who's the trustee, who do you want to actually be trustee of the decision that for the process? Who do you want the vet to be? Who do you want the training to be? Who do you want the boarding facility to be? And sort of, what some parameters as to what sort of life-ending care the animal may have.
Yeah.
As to and you got to be careful with this. You don't want to dictate too much. But as Ciera said, there's a point in time when it is just with animals that it's better to put them down than keep them alive. And owners have different thoughts about when that should occur.
Oh yeah.
And,
even when they're alive.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so some kind of parameters as to what the grantor's wishes are. with regard to-
Criteria.
Yeah, and I guess that's probably, when you think about it, particularly with a horse, and maybe some other animals, the budgets you need, maybe more than you would think.
Often it is, and
Yeah.
as they get older, it's usually higher.
Okay.
So it's not static in most situations. Even if the horse, as it gets older, they have to switch to special senior type food, so it's more easily digested, or a different type of hay. They can have a colic episode, which is where horses can't vomit. So if they have a stomach ache, they can't really relieve themselves.
Did not know that.
Yeah, very interesting. So they can choke. That can kill them just like a human if they choke. But if they have a stomach upset for whatever reason and they cannot relieve the pain they can't vomit, so they can't relieve their pain, they can get so painful that colic surgery, which is an exploratory laparotomy, so abdominal surgery, is where we would send them. But that's not always reasonable given how long has it been painful, other factors. And some people don't want to put their horse through that. If they're very old, getting up from general anesthesia is very dangerous. Lots of horses can break their leg. It's, they do everything they can not to let that happen, but it's still a risk. And so there's lots of factors that go into that decision-making process too. In that scenario, let's say the horse is so old and has lots of other issues going on, surgery is going to put them through more harm than good. That would be a decision or a time to make that decision to sleep. But yeah, there's lots of things where, and we deal with this all the time, where horses or pets in any kind, we keep them alive for us more than we keep them alive for them. And that's something that your veterinarian can help you navigate. I have to have that discussion with clients a lot where we know that their horse's time may be coming soon. I try to prepare them, make them think about what they would do should that scenario come up. And sometimes they are very clear about their wishes and they have it written down somewhere or even have a trust. And then sometimes they are making an emotional decision in the moment. And then when the owner has passed, let's say it's a daughter or somebody else, the family member that's now in charge of making those decisions, they may not have the expertise because they're not a horse person and they
Right.
don't know the horse very well.
Right.
And they are pressured because they know their dearly beloved who has just passed away would want to do everything, or maybe they don't know what their wishes are. So they feel guilty about making decisions. So that's something that needs to be decided before.
And we have the tools to do that. I mean, we have directive positions with regard to humans, which sets up who is it going to be make the decision, what sort of the medical people, are going to provide information or help make determinations. That. So maybe we have the tools to do that. It's something to consider.
And we recently did have a client who we were setting up estate documents for him, including what to do with his dogs, and he's got show dogs, so specific breeds that I don't think they were old enough anymore to be participating and competing, but they had specific care needs, and his problem was naming somebody to take care of them because they didn't have many friends and family in the area, didn't have a wide network of acquaintances. He didn't have any children to leave the dogs with, and what we ended up finding is that he asked the vet. And so
what I would say,
so that your veterinarian is probably a very good resource if you don't know what options you have and are struggling to think of where would I leave my dog, who would or pet, who would I leave it with. Inquire with your veterinarian, because I think a lot of them have programs. If they can't take the animal, they might know someone or some organizations who can.
And there are also small organizations. Animal,
Right,
like that.
He reached out.
Adoption.
Yeah.
Also, if it's funded with some money, both for the organization and for adoption, you can make the whole process easier.
Well, and I have had the scenario where the owner didn't pass away, but there were two horses that lived together, and one of the horses passed away. And horses are herd animals. Dogs are pack animals. Horses are herd animals. They want to be in a group. And so this horse was left alone and had no buddy.
Oh.
And so he was losing his mind. And the owner was worried that the horse was going to cause himself harm from stressing so much and running around like a nutcase. And so the owner asked me, do I know of anybody that maybe has an availability for her horse to go live somewhere else in order to have companionship? Yeah, exactly. A buddy. Yeah. A pasture mate. So I was able to coordinate between two clients that didn't know each other, but I knew them. So I was that liaison, and said, I'm not going to make the decision, but you two can talk and decide if this is a good scenario for the two of you and your animals. And that ended up working out quite well. And then they got a mini donkey and everybody was happy. So, but there's that. Your vet can be a very good resource to either connect people, connect organizations, or say, you know what, I don't know, but let me look and see if I can get some more information. Even prepping for this podcast, I contacted the AAEP, which is the American Association of Equine Practitioners, and they have some really excellent resources for these types of topics. They actually gave me a couple of documents that the American Horse Council, American Horse Coalition have put together discussing kind of the topics that we're talking about today with trusts and wills.
Yeah, there are 9 organizations for bills for the road.
Yeah. And you were telling us about these resources you brought in. What can you share with us about those?
Yeah, so the AAP, as I said, that is an organization it's a membership organization for veterinarians in the US that work on horses. But they also have a lot of horse owner education resources. Everything from what vaccines does my horse need to how do I get an international health certificate to ship it to France, to just simple, how do I deworm my horse, make sure they're healthy, those kinds of things. And then that's where I found those resources. So they have 2 different documents that they had sent. And there's actually another link to the page, but one of the documents is about estate planning for your horse. And it says, when you sit down with an attorney to make your will or trust, remember to include your horses. So this is one of the documents that I thought was quite helpful. And then another one that the United Horse Coalition had put together is talking about estate planning for your horse, and had some other definitions and some more considerations, things to consider. If you have land, can I donate my horse? What about a retirement home? Those kinds of things. So some of those resources were very helpful, even for me to prepare for this. But then also they have a lot of horse owner resources available at no cost, that if you just search AAP.org is the website. then you can just search as an owner and get lots of information.
Yeah, and it's good to have, you know, your ideas in mind, if and when you're ready to plan your estate, write out your will. And that's what Hap and I are here for. That if you know that this is relevant to you, you've got, you know, your beloved animal in your life, or know someone who has one, and you or they don't have a will or a trust set up, and you think it might be a good idea,
We're here.
come see us.
I'll be taking my horse to them, in fact, because I just realized we haven't set that up yet.
All right, excellent. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Ciera, for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It was fun. I learned a lot.
Yes, so did we.
Good.
All right. And this has been The Legal Play with
Hap May.
Thank you.